It's time for story time with Chris. Gotcha. So long, farewell to you, my friend. Goodbye for now. Until we meet again, I say so long, farewell to you, my friend. Goodbye. Out of the Box. That was a show back on Disney Channel, okay? Out of the box. Out of the box. It was just a cool show about just using like stuff that you have around the house, paper mache, color paper, composition paper, color pens, pencils, markers, chalk, and just create wonderful magical situations and worlds. And it was all about supporting creativity, which is something that unfortunately in this particular paradigm shift in the country right now, some people are trying to stifle that creativity, and guess what? It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Because let me tell you this thing. Creativity, freedom of speech, it's going to continue to be a thing. There are amazing people in the world, amazing children that make this world a better place because they're creative, darling. And there is nothing in the world, including a certain orange, that is going to stop that from happening. Okay? Just make that very clear. I was using my Mrs. Big Head impression from Rocco's Modern Life. That's a 90s show. It was a great time. It was a good time. Yes. Anyway. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Storytime with Chris. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max, relax, and chillaxing time. In between time, mean time, scheme time, study time, break time, CP time, any time that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of magic, fantasy, science fiction, adventure, music, and many, many more in between. Hi! We got a double whammy today, so we're going to start with the Unicorn Chronicles, and then we're going to start the first chapter of the final book, Dark is Rising sequence, which is called Silver on the Tree by Susan Cooper. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And no, I don't own the music that you're listening to in the background. Hold on one second. I forgot I left the fan on. Hold on. Hoi! Gotcha! Just the last time we were here, Kara and Lightfoot ran away because they accidentally moved into a Delver camp and got ambushed, and Kara jumped on Lightfoot's back. Honey, they dipped. They completely ran. Like the wind, okay? Silent like a shadow. Do you hear me? Okay? Which is why you can't call a unicorn a horse. It's not the same thing. Though it gives that impression in certain artistic depictions, it's not a horse. It is a creature and a species in and of its own. It's horse-like, but if you look at this illustration, look at his legs. He's got that long sheer hair towards the bottom of the legs like a goat. The body is very slim. The head is of a horse with the flowing mane and whatnot, but the tail is more like feathery and wispy, like almost like a lion in particular, because their tails on the ends get pretty flowy and whatnot depending on the age. But yes, Lightfoot was booking it in the dark. He said, "We got to get out of here, honey, because they are coming. The Delvers." But now we're about to meet a new character who honestly is one of my favorite characters in this series. He does not get enough stories about him, but there is a short story involving this character that I probably will read at some point because he actually is very important to the lore of the Unicorn Chronicles as well as the world of Luster. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 10, The Tinker. Kara and Lightfoot stood about 100 feet from the Delver camp. debated fiercely about who should go back to study the situation. When Lightfoot claimed he could move more silently, Kara pointed out that he was also more likely to be seen because of his white coat and luminous horn. Actually, I could dim my horn, he told her. It wouldn't be a dangerous thing if I could. It would be a dangerous thing if I couldn't. That doesn't change the fact that it's a lot easier to see that white coat of yours than it would be to spot me. I mean, look at me. I practically blend into the forest. Indeed, her jeans and t-shirt were so stained and mud-spattered that they looked like the camouflage clothes the boys in her class sometimes wore, which I love a good camo outfit. A camo hoodie, not really camo pants, but a camo hoodie, camo t-shirt, love it. I can't let you go down there alone, said Lightfoot firmly. If they heard you, how would you get away? In the end, they decided they would go together, but Carol would make the closest approach to the camp, with Lightfoot hiding nearby. She agreed solemnly not to get more than 50 feet away from him. They also decided that it would be foolish to take the amulet with them. You know, not all my relatives would approach this the same way, said Lightfoot, resting his horn on Kara's shoulder. She carefully hid the amulet and its broken chain in a hollow tree. I could think of some that would insist we abandon the Dibblethumb and head for Grimwald's cavern as fast as possible. She thought about that for a minute. It might be the sensible thing to do, she said. After all, the most important thing is to keep the amulet from falling into the wrong hands. That's true. Kara paused, her hand still in the tree trunk. But leaving the Dibblethumb doesn't feel right, she continued. That's true as well. She could feel confusion beginning to creep over her. So the question is, should we risk the mission and the safety of all the unicorns in order to rescue one friend? Some of my relatives would say there's no question. We have a clear duty to keep the amulet away from the enemy. This is not just our journey. The safety of the unicorns and possibly all of Luster depends on defending the amulet against those who would abuse it. Kara slowly drew her hand from the tree. She began moving her arm back and forth as if she were trying to decide whether to reach in and take back the amulet. The choice seemed to be crushing against her brain. Are you trying to tell me we shouldn't go back for the Dibblethumb? She asked. I'm just pointing out the questions involved. I should probably also point out that most of my relatives don't think much of the Dibblethumb. He paused and added, Of course, most of them don't think much of me either. Though she longed for Lightfoot to make the decision, Kara sensed that he was going to defer to her in this matter, perhaps because he was confused himself. But she was torn too. Her mind was telling her that the good of all, they should flee with the amulet and take it as far from this place as possible. Her friend was screaming that they could not leave. Her heart was screaming they could not leave her friend. In the end, her heart made the choice. Asking herself what her grandmother would do, she found herself thinking instead about her parents. The painful memory of the way they had abandoned her made it impossible for her to do the same to anyone else. We're going to get him, she declared. That's a very immature decision, said Lightfoot. The criticism stung like a slap. Why do you say that? She asked sharply. Because it is what I would choose, he replied, sounding amused. And my uncle has assured me many times that I am very immature. If your uncle wants to handle this, let him come out here and wander around in the woods with the Delvers, said Kara. In the meantime, we have to see what they're doing with the Dibblethumb. Creeping through the darkness, away from Lightfoot and toward the Delvers, Kara could easily have wished they had decided to press on in their journey. Each movement was an agony of indecision as she tried not to make a betraying sound. Each dew-wet leaf that brushed her face, each twig that prodded her side seemed to her racing imagination the touch of an enemy. Finally, she drew close enough to get a clear view of the Delver camp through the undergrowth, but the flickering light of the low fire she saw that the Dibblethumb had been bound to a tall pole. He sagged against his ropes, as if weary and beaten. Even in the low light, she could see at least his wounds. The Delvers stood in a circle around him, prodding him with their spears. They were speaking to him, but without Lightfoot at her side, she heard only rasping, guttural sounds. The Dibblethumb spoke not at all. Whether he was refusing to answer, or had actually lost consciousness, she could not tell in the dim light. Each time one of the Delvers poked at the man-bear, she wanted to scream at them to leave him alone. Finally, she could stand to watch no more. Moved quietly, she returned to Lightfoot's side. What can we do? She asked after describing the hideous scene. He shook his head mournfully. I don't know. They trailed the Delvers for the better part of the next day. It was a horrible, frustrating time, partly because they were moving backward away from Grimwald's cavern, but even more because in that time they would not able to do anything to help the Dimplethumb. To add to their worries, they had no idea what had happened to the man who was hunting Kara. She couldn't help but wonder if he was stalking them even as they were following the Delvers. To top things off, the Squidgem, who would normally have reappeared by this time, seemed to have vanished altogether. "You don't suppose anything happened to him, do you?" asked Kara once when they were taking a break. "Hard to tell with that one," replied Lightfoot. "Something could have happened to him, or he might have simply lost track of us. Though he is a very good hunter, he may even have lost interest. His attention span is not all that great, but there is nothing we can do about him now. We need to focus on the Dimplethumb. I suggest you rest while you can. There's no telling when they'll start moving again." Though she could stop worrying, Kara did try to relax. They were only taking a break because the Delvers had stopped for the same purpose. There, with an even dozen of the little monsters, about half the group that had first captured the Dimplethumb. According to the snatches of conversation they had been able to catch, the others had remained to continue looking for the girl with the amulet, as they referred to her. Kara thought it was rather amusing that while they were out looking for her, she was trailing them. It was the only amusing aspect of the situation. Her heart ached for the poor Dimplethumb. She had caught glimpses of him stumbling along, his paws bound behind him, Delvers prodding him with their spears should he falter or slow. Oddly, the Delvers seemed not to worry about anyone coming after them. She decided that they were so used to being the hunters that it never occurred to them that things might go the other way. When the hunter becomes the hunted, which reminds me of a really good novel called A Dangerous Game. I could read that for my teenagers, actually. I can't read it from my young babies. I can't read that to y'all. It's a bit of a darker story, but it's really good. When the hunter becomes the hunted. The Delver party got ready to start out again. It was a noisy process which made it easier for Kara and Lightfoot to keep track of them without getting too close. Kara had noticed that while the Delvers occasionally moved through unmarked forest, they more often followed faint but definitive paths. What surprised her was that twice these paths crossed wider paths to find by pairs of shallow ruts. "Is this some kind of road?" she asked Lightfoot the first time they crossed one. "Yes. It was made by some of the humans." "There are other humans in Luster?" she asked excitedly. "Not many." She wanted to know more, but he was focused on the problem of the Delvers and the Dimplethumb and didn't want to be bothered talking about such things. She did notice that though the Delvers crossed these roads, they did not follow them. She and Lightfoot were crossing one of the roads themselves some minutes behind the Delvers when they heard a horrible clatter to their right. "There you are!" cried a friendly voice. "I've been waiting for you." They turned. To their astonishment, an oddly dressed man was trotting toward them. He was drawing a cart behind him when he pulled by means of two wooden poles. Hanging from the roof of the cart were all manner of things, including a number of pots and pans, all of them clanging and clattering like a cooking set being rolled down a stairway. Kara was terrified that the racket would draw the Delvers, but Lightfoot told her that it was more likely they would stay away since they did not care much for humans, and only humans would make such a racket. Still, she would have insisted that they move on so that they not lose sight of the Dimplethumb had she not seen what was sitting on top of the man's wagon. "The Squidgem!" she cried. "Oh, yes," said the man slowly to a walk. "It was he who brought me to you." "Good, Squidgem! Happy good! Gotcha! Gotcha!" cried the little creature, leaping from the wagon to an overhanging tree. He began swinging through the branches, which let him reach Kara and Lightfoot considerably ahead of the man. He leapt down to her shoulder. Kara stroked his fur as she stared at the approaching man. Bald and bearded with a roundish nose, he wore high leather boots, loose trousers, and a remarkable coat that seemed to be made almost entirely of patches of various bright fabrics. The coat had an astonishing number of pockets. Gold chains drooped in graceful arcs from every one of them. "Thank goodness I found you," he said, clattering to a stop. Dropping the wooden poles of his wagon, he wiped his high bald head with the handkerchief he fished from his trousers. The cart was like a tiny horse on wheels, about 4 feet wide and 8 feet long. It had a pitched roof and high blue walls. Painted on its side in large, old-fashioned letters were the words, "Thomas the Tinker. I mend what I can." "Actually, you're right on schedule," he said, pulling one of the chains to reveal a large pocket watch. He stared at the watch for a moment, then frowned. "Or maybe you're not." He pulled an even larger watch from another pocket and stared at it. "Oh well, never mind," he said, shoving both watches back into his pockets other than the ones from which they had come. "You're here, and so am I, and that's what matters. Shall we take a stab at rescuing your friend?" And that is where we will end for today. Don't worry, we're going to learn more about Thomas the Tinker. I love him because he reminds me a mixture of Doc from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the Disney adaptation, and the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. That's the best way to describe him. He's incredibly smart, a bit aloof and goofy, and patchwork together, but he has a heart of gold and is incredibly resourceful and quite magical. So I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, lovelies. Bye-bye.